Welcome to the Neuro Performance Podcast with your host, Andy Murphy. Join us as we delve into the advanced high-performance tactics he uses with his elite clientele across the globe. Let's unlock a whole new world of business potential together.
Welcome, everybody. Here we are, January the 15th, 2025, and week two of these 8-Figure Thinker Lives. Hope you enjoyed last week. Hope that you really went back, because my mission today is by the end of this meeting today, this training, this whatever you want to call it, I want you to gain so much knowledge over your perspective that you can really look at your business a different way. I want you to really understand that the stability, the scalability isn't in the system. It's in you. It's in your creativity, your ideas. So I want you to look back on in 30 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever we do with this training today. And I want you to look back and realize one thing. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. That's what 8-figure thinking is all about, right? Could be 8 figures a lifetime, 8 figures a year, 8 figures a week, a month, a day, an hour, a minute, whatever level you're playing at. But really, 8-figure thinking is a mindset, right? It's how you perceive yourself. It's how you treat yourself and how you see business and life. That's what an 8-figure thinker is all about. And we're training you into one. So why don't I share my screen and let's jump in to today. I'm excited. So what have we got? Well, if you were here last week, amazing. It was absolutely fantastic. I'm going to cover a couple of the slides this week, just so you know that, well, it's reiteration. That's how we form habit formation. And we'll be talking about habit formation. But welcome to the 8-Figure Thinker Neuro Performance Micro Certifications and Masterclass. And today, it's quite special. I'm excited. So what is today? Scaling without stress. Build neurosystems that work simply so you don't have to work as hard, right? And that's what all this is about. The world, and especially marketing, teaches external systems, right? And that's great. They're important. Marketing is important. Sales is important. But marketing and strategies and sales tactics, they can evolve, they can change depending on the level of your client or your potential client, right? So what we know is that the brain is the same, right? Your unconscious mind, communication, how you build neurological patterns, how you control brain chemistry, brain waves, all of these things that I teach to the highest level people. Well, I know that works. So I want to share with this for you. And remember, the 8-Figure Thinker was born many years ago. It's my signature course, and it's over 40 hours. It's a full curriculum, full certification in behavioral psychology, NLP, neuroscience, persuasion and influence. And it takes you on such a journey to get you to be, well, the ultimate you, to play an elite level. So really what these trainings are about is they're like a page out of an encyclopedia, right? So if you haven't seen, I should put these in the chat, but I'll do that during today. So you've got access after this training to myself, the team. I'm going to put a WhatsApp group link in there. Just join. You can ask me questions. You can find out what's going on, whether you want to work with me for an hour, a minute, or a year, or you want to look at what the 8-Figure Thinker Members Club's all about. Okay? So what are we doing today? Well, why scaling without stress matters for leaders. And if you're here right now, listen to this, thinking the things that you're thinking, then you are a leader. That's just the truth, right? Whether you consider yourself that or not, you are. We're going to look at neuroscience of decision fatigue and leadership bottlenecks. We're going to talk about certain parts of the brain I'm going to uncover in a few minutes. We're going to leverage the time mastery playbook. And if you didn't get your time mastery playbook, it's immense. It's immense. I give it away with week 1. Little bonus for being there live, right? And if you're watching the replay on this, I only give these PDFs and bonuses for people who attend live. So click the WhatsApp group, come and have a chat. I'll see what I can do. So, and then we're going to give you some actionable steps. There's no point in just giving you information. I want you to be able to take immediate action. Does that sound good? Awesome. So who the heck's this for? Well, it's for CEOs, founders, consultants, and executives like you, right? Seeking elite expansion. So, are you going through this experience right now? You could be stuck in a loop of diminishing returns, unable to break into that high leverage roles of untapped blue oceans of income, recognition, and influence. And maybe you're just overwhelmed with trying the same thing again and again, and it's simply not working for you. And I want to change that because everything starts with clarity, right? Everything starts from the inside out, but it starts with an idea. And let me show you more about that in a minute. Sound good, everyone? If this is something that you can hear and everything else, make sure that you're writing in the chat, and make sure you're staying to the end so we can have a chat on the Q&A, because that's what I was going to explain in the chat, right? I'll copy it and paste it during the session today. But 2 parts. First part is the training. Second part is Q&A. So you get a chance to come on live with me. If you're brave, come on video. If you can do audio, you can also type it in the question and the chat. So either way, I want to make sure that you get some high-level coaching today. Sound good? If it does sound good, write yes, Andy, in the chat. So let's keep going. Because just like I was saying before, and this is what I really want you to understand, all business success originates from a new idea. Think about what that really means. A new idea could be pivoting because something isn't working anymore. A new idea could be expanding with a new team. A new idea could be understanding who you truly are at your ultimate, right? Because we all have levels, and levels have thresholds. So what you want is outside of this threshold, okay? But the challenge with this is, if we understand the brain works very much like a muscle. Neuroplasticity, which I'm sure you've heard before, it's a common term these days, but it means the brain is malleable, it's changeable, okay? And I'm going to show you a little tactic a little bit later on, how we can make this brain extra malleable so we can create rapid change for you, okay? Sound good? Awesome. So, new idea could be who you are, what is possible, and your ability to stay laser focused and in flow. Because I don't know about you, but in the past, I've tried so many different strategies to grow businesses, okay? And if you don't know me, I'm about to show who I am in a couple of moments, but I've done this for 22 years with some of the best in the world. And I've seen thousands and thousands of clients. I've had the lucky fortune to look in the minds of some of the best people in the world. And what I've found is that, well, the ability to stay laser focused on what you want, no matter what happens, bulletproof, is how you achieve greatness. Okay? So, this is the truth. I'm just going to let you read that for a moment, okay? But this is the truth. The rules of wealth have changed. They really have. And I want to ask you, have you changed with these times? Because The world is evolving faster and faster. Titles no longer guarantee security. Like you might have been a CEO or a founder before if you're in corporate, right? You might have all these certifications, right? If you're a consultant or you're a founder of your own company or you're coaching or whatever you're doing, right? But they don't really mean what they did 5, 10 years ago. Make sense? You agree with this? In the chat, right? If you agree, write in the chat. And the truth is, a lot of companies, they come and go. And the stability and security of being in a steady job, it just isn't there anymore, right? So success isn't about what you've done, it's about who you're becoming. So if we can tap into new blue oceans with you, if we can think bigger than you ever thought before, if we can build the neurology, if we can build the nervous system, right? If we can teach you to control these things, then what happens is the level you think at is so high. It's so high. Think about it this way. The old version of you from 15 years ago, right? You had a certain way of seeing the world, certain way of seeing yourself. You had certain beliefs, certain attitudes, certain language you spoke to yourself or the people, how you valued yourself, how you valued money, certain beliefs about what's possible, the speed of what's possible. Does this make sense? So all of that is not who you are now. So if we can build, unlock, expand what's possible, so this ball of neurology, right, which is what it is, it's a muscle, this version of you that you get glimpses of, okay, well, that version of you thinks, feels, and acts a very different way from this version. If we can build this version and expand it, then what happens is you make rapid decisions. Everything changes, right? So let me ask you a question. What's the ROI of 10% happier? What's the ROI of 10% more focus, 10% faster decision making, right? 2 more IQ points. The answer is exponential, right? So no one saw the impact of AI in business. Like this a couple of years ago, it just didn't exist. And yet I use ChatGPT for one every single day, right? I haven't Googled anything in probably 6 or 7 months. It all runs through ChatGPT and AI. So what about the next level? Well, the next level is no one can predict the impact of quantum computing. And I'm sure you know about quantum computing, but when we use the word quantum, right, we talk about subatomic particles, we talk about, uh, right, we talk about all of these things. And that is literally what quantum computing is doing. It's quite crazy. They don't actually even know, right? Yet the people who do stay one step ahead, right, of their competition, which is what I want for you, is those are the people that become really the true leaders of the world. And if we looked at what I just said, there's no stability anymore, right? You are the stability. You are the product. You are the service, right? You are the brand. And it's about really leaning into that. But often when we have these behavioral patterns that are outdated, it's like we constantly hit threshold. We get controlled inside of a box, but everything we want is outside of it. What I do, right, is shatter that box, expand what's possible, and gain clarity so we can move you really, really fast. Sound good? Awesome. So the truth is, the pain of staying stuck. And it doesn't matter what level you're playing at. As I say, I'll show you who some of the people I've coached with me over the years. But it's a case of the pressure and mountain in the economy. The market shifts, the competition are relentless. Think about that. These young kids coming through do not give a damn about your label, what your experience is. They're going for it, right? So you have to expand and keep up with what's happening, right? Make sense? So you could be stuck in the familiar, relying on strategies, marketing strategies, mental strategies, and business strategies that worked in the past but aren't delivering the results now. And that's okay. It's okay, right? But we have to keep evolving. We have to keep changing. Invisible roadblocks. Your potential is capped because the world doesn't see your value. Now, you could be genuinely the best at what you do in the world, but if no one sees you, then it doesn't really matter. And if your purpose is to really create a difference, like impact in the world or help companies or whatever it is that is the emotional driver behind your behavior, right? Whatever that is that pulls you forwards each day. Well, if no one sees you for whatever reason, then it's kind of a shame. Does that make sense? So if this resonates with you, you're simply not alone, right? Leaders across the world are struggling to break through in a world that rewards bold evolution, right? This is where we create dopamine in the brain, dopamine in our marketing, dopamine in our sales, and dopamine in our clients, right? And we'll get more into what that means. So the truth is your leadership. And leadership's an interesting word, right? It's leading yourself, leading your brand, leading your mission. But is it costing you your freedom? And that's what today is really about. Because and the previous session too, I want you to go back over that if you haven't, because we talk a lot about dopamine depletion. Dopamine being what? What? Write it in the chat, right? Dopamine's what? Well, dopamine isn't the reward brain chemical. It's not, right? Dopamine is the motivation chemical. And if it's wired to the wrong thing, then the dopamine or the motivation can be self destructive or self serving, right? Self serving, not in an egotistical way, self serving in a good way, right? But the truth is, most CEOs, founders, consultants, and executives are caught between high level strategy and operational demands. And you could be in an organization, you could be leading an organization, you could be an entrepreneur in the organization, you could just be a solopreneur who's maybe got one or two people that help you drive your vision forwards. But the truth is, we all know what amount of work it takes, right? Even to create these trainings for you, right? These live sessions, these live series, it's a lot of work. And really, I don't know if you're ever going to meet with me. And that's okay. I just want you to be the best version of you because I know that creates a ripple through the world, ripple through the industry. And we all know that the world is in a lot of chaos right now. There's a lot of change happening. And that's what we want for you, is to change. Because otherwise, if we don't get hold of our time, if we don't get hold of understanding how the brain patterns work and our behaviors and brain chemicals, then we can very easily get burnt out. We can very easily hit bottlenecks and stress, especially when scaling, right? When we're hitting these thresholds. What happens is we just burn out and we don't ever achieve what we know we're capable of. Make sense? Good. So everyone know this guy? And if you were in a previous last week, in the previous session last week, there's going to be some slides that are very similar. Why? Because I like them. I like them. And just because something's common knowledge does not mean it's common practice, right? So Ray Dalio, you got to know Ray Dalio, right? Ray Dalio's let's use that word, one of the greatest investors ever. What I love about Ray is a few different things. One, he's completely self-made, right? And what he worked out quite quickly as he was growing his funds is that his team Well, it didn't matter what he did to motivate them. It didn't matter what he did to help them, right? The challenge became is that he couldn't dial them into their full potential, right? So he worked out the psychology is the missing key to any business. So his quote, I absolutely love it. I attribute as much of my success about what I've learned about the brain as what I do to my understanding of economics and investing. And he knows a lot about economics and investing. If you don't know Ray, I'm sure you do, but go and check him out. So if you don't know me, well, this is a little bit about me. I'm Andy Murphy. You probably worked that out by now. But I've spent over 2 decades helping elite leaders do what? Rewire their brains for clarity, resilience, and blue ocean thinking. 2, I attract world-class opportunities. I get them, my clients, to attract world-class opportunities, okay? So number 3, build elite networks and transfer pressure into power. So it doesn't matter what you're feeling right now. It doesn't matter what the weight is of your business, right? Once we unlock your full potential, then the truth is anything's possible, just like Ray, right? So I design Genius to see the patterns of business, finance, and the future. And that's a key thing, that word there, patterns, pattern recognition. Pattern recognition over your own thinking, right? Pattern recognition over the trends or the bleeding edge of what's about to happen, right? Pattern recognition over your clients, pattern recognition over everything. It is the number one skill. And if you can learn this, then business and life become, well, they become a game, right? So what makes my neuroconditioning business strategies quite unique, as I spent 22 years, we work on neuroscience, the psychology, and proven systems. The neuroscience is like the evidence of how you think, feel, act, and lead, right? That's how we reprogram you. The psychology, which is a combination of behavioral psychology, neurolinguistic programming, all of these modalities that I've melted together. And that's really to give you unshakable confidence and peak performance in any environment. Doesn't matter if you've got millions of people watching you. It doesn't matter if you've got millions of dollars put on you every single day and you have to perform. You could be a trader, right? Then the proven system to expand your influence, income, and impact. And it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. You could be running a $200 million company watching this. I've worked with you, right? You could be have an idea and just getting started. It's okay. We can unlock it. So I've helped leaders like you navigate the toughest challenges and come out stronger, wealthier, and in control. And these are the exact same protocols that I've trained billionaires with, $300 million CEOs, world champions, royalty, celebrity, and 8-figure thought leaders. You can head over to andymurphy.online and click on clients and take a little look, So that's a little bit about me. So why now? Like I explained with AI, the world is moving so fast. You must invest in yourself and your future to stay ahead of your competition because they don't care. They don't care. So you have to, more than you ever have before, about your future, about your business, about your skill set, okay? So let's get into number one. Is your leadership costing you freedom? Probably. Probably is. But let's jump into that because outdated business thinking is always externally driven. If we hit this threshold, what people get taught is they need a new tactic, a new strategy, right? A new funnel, a new website, a new ad revenue model, or whatever it is. And it's simply not true. It might be true, but it depends on your level of thinking. Remember I said this? An 8-figure thinker version of you is going to decide to do very different tactics than someone who is broke or hurting, or if you're in fight or flight response right now, right? So we have to expand you into a different viewpoint, a different perspective. And once we do that, then we build that muscle. So suddenly you start perceiving yourself, the inner outer world very differently. And that dictates your business strategies, your partnerships, right? Your strategic decisions. Make sense? Right in the chat if it does. Right in the chat if it does. So the question, are you leading your business or is your business leading you? I ask this question because it's interesting. If I just bring up a few clients in my head right now, it's very interesting. I've seen this so many times before, and I've seen so many really wealthy people, businesses that are doing a lot of money, and the CEO, the founder, the exec team, the C-suite, whoever it is, they're kind of not happy. And they're not happy. Let's talk about a founder, right? A founder or a CEO often creates the business and because it generates income. The challenge becomes is they get stuck in that, right? They hate the business, they hate the model, but they just keep having to stay in, feeling unfulfilled, feeling stressed because it's well, what you're going to do is change the income? No. What we're going to teach you is how to change your role, right? Change who you are inside of that business, right? And when we can do that, that gains clarity and you get the idea, right? We change who you are and change what happens inside that business and how you perceive it. That could go right down to company culture and the ecosystem of the business, right? Because founders, CEOs, C-suite, exec teams, and the technicians, right? The sales teams and all the rest of it. And the culture has to ripple through. If you're the founder or the top people, the top management, then the challenge becomes is this. The challenge is stress hormones. If you're stressed out, that actually has a ripple effect. Scientifically, neuroscience has a ripple effect to the people around you. That has a ripple effect, ripple effect, ripple effect. So if the founder or the high level managers, the CEOs, etc., are stressed out, unclear, that ripples right through the company. From proximity, stress hormones is just one thing that will do it, right? So we have to change this because the truth is decision fatigue. Decision fatigue, what that means is that if you're doing so many different things, then it drains the prefrontal cortex. Again, I went into this more last week, right? You probably remember if you were there. And when we drain the prefrontal cortex, then that's the front bit of our brain that makes decisions. It's like the CEO of your brain. It rationalizes everything, right? And what happens when that's drained, right? Because it becomes overloaded, poor decisions happen. Poor decisions, right? And look at that. Decision fatigue decreases productivity up to 40% in executives. Think about that, up to 40%. So if we were able to get that back by optimizing you to, even if it's 10%, do you think that extra 30% might give you a massive ROI? Of course it does, right? Of course it does. So decision fatigue, 35,000 decisions daily. Think about that. We can add to that. We actually think around, it depends on what study is a thing, but we're around 65,000 thoughts a day, which around 60% of them are actually on repeat. So if you're in a stressed version of you, how's your perception of the world, right? What's your beliefs about what's possible? How do you talk to other people, right? All of this really affects who you are, how your business performs, right? Makes sense. And if you're a VP of sales or salesperson, then even that, right? You're running teams and we have to be on point. So let me keep going for you. So let me ask you a question. What's one decision you can automate or eliminate today? Think about that. Think about that, right? Mundane, operational, strategic. By delegating just 10% of the operational tasks, executives report a 25% increase in productivity. Think about that, right? That's a massive ROI. The reason I'm telling you this is because of this. I hate this word, and I'll use that word hate, and I don't use it very often, but I do. Because the word grind, which has become a cultural norm in the entrepreneur world, I'm going to grind this out. I've got to grind. Oh, I'm doing extra hours to grind this out, right? But if our brain isn't optimized, if we've got overload of the prefrontal cortex, all of these things, then we're just not going to make good decisions anyway. So we might as well go home. We might as well go and relax. We might as well go and chill out, man. And the definition, as you can see there, is to reduce to small particles or powder by crushing. So grinding literally means destroying, right? And yet, why is this a badge of honor? Doesn't make sense. So if you're using that word, neuro-linguistic programming, right, or neuro-linguistic repatterning, linguistic means the words that we say have an image. Connected to that image is an emotion. Connected to the emotion is language, right? That's connected to that emotion again. That emotion is what I call an emotional driver. That emotional driver is going to give you how you perceive the world. Remember, stressed, you see the world stressed. Happy, you see the world happy. Does that make sense? Good. So quickly, a little slide from last time, but task switching increases cognitive load and drains prefrontal cortex. Dopamine, right? The reward system reinforces distractions like email and low value tasks. So I said this last week, and I'll probably say it every week. If you are getting up, I was going to say getting awake, but if you're awake, right, and you start hitting Instagram or whatever it is, right, or LinkedIn, where I spend most of my time now on LinkedIn, but if you start scrolling or checking your emails, that literally starts burning dopamine. And if we've only got so much dopamine in like a load of dopamine, and then we start using it for all low value tasks, then we burn it out. We can't make these high level decisions. So when that happens, it causes absolute chaos. It means we can't perform, and we realize, oh, I'm not motivated today. Well, there's a reason, right? There's a reason. Make sense? Make sense? Good. Right in that. Right in the chat. Right in the chat. So I could go through this, but we kind of went through that last week, right? Multitasking drains your brain, and we'll go through that next time. So here's a novel concept for you, right? What is the role of the basal ganglia in scaling and automation? Now, remember what we're here to do. Scale and automate, right? That's why you came today. The neuroscience or the neuroconditioning, my protocols, around scaling a business without stress. So what the heck? Some of you are going to know. Some of you probably teach this better than me, right? But the basal ganglia is a very interesting thing. Now, you'll understand what this is. I'm just going to add to this. So the basal ganglia is a group of structures in the brain that plays a critical role in habit formation, motor control, and automation of tasks. When you repeatedly perform an action or to make a decision, the basal ganglia creates a neural pathway to make that behavior more automatic. What are they? You see it at the bottom. Habit learning, right? Or procedural memory. But habits, this is the part of your brain that creates habits, right? So habits are awesome, by the way. They're really, really good. It's bad habits that are the problem. Okay. So we've got to really remove these bad habits, and we've got to look at how to use habit formation and the basal ganglia to really automate your business as much as we can, or automate your tasks. Why? So we're not getting dopamine burnouts. So our prefrontal cortex, right, doesn't get overloaded. Why? So we can make high level decisions. Does this all make sense? Write in the chat if it makes sense, right? Because I know those pieces all come together, but I hope that does make sense now, right? And that's why you shouldn't be scrolling. That's why you shouldn't be getting up and just checking emails. You should be very organized. Depends how you structure it. I work off my calendar and Google Docs and things like that. But I organize my calendar every day, depending on my energy level, depends on a lot of things, right? But I want to make sure that I am doing what I call money moves. Yeah, money moves. Money moves are what I teach as highly leveraged decisions. What's going to create the biggest ROI for you, right? The biggest ROI for you in your business, in your life, your health that day. Make sense? Good. So, how we do scale and automation. You've probably read this already, right? Task automation, freeing cognitive resources, what I've just explained, efficiency gains, right? So, what we want to do is, if you can hire a VA even, right? It's just a cheap VA. But if they can handle communication with other people, if they can handle communication and tasks for you, if they can just do those little things for you, you realize right now how important those are in your performance, in your productivity, in your expanded, accelerated growth. Makes sense? Good, right? So we can go over this, but again, automating repetitive tasks train the basal ganglia to handle these processes, freeing up the prefrontal cortex of high level strategic thinking, right? And if you're running a business, CEO is just a title. Elon Musk talks about this, right? CEO, COO, they're just titles, right? And because we're doing everything basically. But repetitive tasks consume approximately 40% of our working hours of CEOs. Well, what is a CEO? CEO, EO isn't supposed to be doing all these menial tasks. They're supposed to be high level thinkers. They're supposed to be making sure everybody's in the correct role so the machine, the organization moves as a high performing vehicle. That's what a CEO is. And if 40% of those tasks are being consumed by just menial, low level value tasks, it causes a problem. Make sense? Make sense? Good. So start thinking about your business. Start thinking about your team. Start thinking about yourself. Who do I need to bring in? Who do I need to get rid of? Right? Because that is the difference that makes the difference. Now, I'm sharing all this with you for a reason, right? I want you to be able to perform at your best. Why? Because I really believe entrepreneurs and business are the things that are going to change the world. I really mean that. So I don't know if I'm going to wake up tomorrow. So why I do these trainings, why I did the Eight Figure Thinker, why I've got the membership members club, the Eight Figure Thinker members club, why I work with clients from, as I say, from one session all the way up to 12 months, 2 years. It's whatever people need, because if I don't wake up tomorrow, I know I've done my best today. And if I've done my best today and left all this content, like even with the podcast, I've done over 400 episodes, right? We've done nearly close to 4 million downloads right now. I just want to give. And if you can take that on inside of you and you gain something from that that helps you, I'm happy. I'm happy, right? So, number 3, let's move on. Neuro conditioning for resilient leadership. Now, I could spend, as I say, like hours and hours, tens of hours, just talking about neuro conditioning, talking about these strategies, talking about persuasion and influence, talking about state changing, talking about how we repattern and rechange memories, right? How we build new behaviors, how we can step into a room, doesn't matter what the pressure is of that room, and you perform at your absolute ultimate best. I can go for hours and hours and hours with that. But I'm not today, right? I'm not today. Because I just want to make you aware, right, of some things. So, common pain points with leadership. Remember, I said right back at the start, leadership, you are the leader. So, leaders struggle with balancing high level strategy and operational demands. The concerns about maintaining control when delegating and the pressure of leading teams through scaling phases. Now, those bottom two, right? Concerns about maintaining control when delegating and the pressure of leading teams through scaling. Let's just talk about that for a moment. And if you've got more questions about that, put them in the chat because we'll do a Q&A in probably about 5-6 minutes. So I've seen this a lot with founders and CEOs, a lot. And because the business is like their baby, the business could be doing tens of millions a year, but it's still like their baby, right? And the thing about that is giving someone part of your baby to look after, weird analogy, I get it, but part of that is they just don't want to they want to make sure, I should say, that it doesn't get hurt. Does that make sense? Because they probably know that role inside and out, or that part of that role inside and out. So to just hand it over to someone, it's kind of, you're having to let go. It's a massive amount of trust. It's a massive amount of trust. And I've seen this a lot with people. But ultimately, as we change the role of the founder, the role of the CEO, the role of the executive, as we change the role of the consultant, right, inside of that organization, including your little one-man team, right, 1 or 2 man team, then trusting that other person to perform at their best, that's about hiring, but it's also about you, right, and training but it's about you. And that's a big thing that I work with as we hit thresholds, as we expand, right? So the other one is the pressure of leading teams through scaling phases. So this is where it becomes really, really, really important to make sure that you're not doing these low value tasks. Because if you are running teams, and which probably means if you're C-suite or above, that probably means that you are also doing 100 other things, right? And those things and running a team, well, teams are made up of people, right? People have issues, egos, different personalities, different way they work, different way they think, feel, and lead. And so you've got to make sure that these things are taken care of or delegated or automated as much as you can, because you want that team to be following you, right? And what did I speak about before? Stress hormones and also mirror neurons and unconscious behaviors, they ripple through your team. They ripple through your organization. And so if you're not on point, the team isn't on point. Make sense? Make sense? Right. So this is why it becomes so important. This is why we talk about the 80-20 rule of psychology and business, right? It becomes so important for you to be on point. And it boils down to this. It boils down to this. Identity. Identity not coming from ego. It's not kind of how I work. I don't tend to work with those type of clients. The type of people that are attracted to me aren't full of ego. They're full of awareness, right? They're full of ambition. They're full of drive. They're full of focus. They're full of clarity. And so what most people do, starting a brand or expanding, they focus on what the result they want. Okay, what did I explain before, right? Old and new. The eight-figure thinker version of you and the identity behind it is going to want a different outcome. It's probably 20x what you thought before. From the outcome, we can create processes. But without the identity being defined, designed, installed, built, right? And then every day starts to create new boundaries around who you are in the world, who you are in that business, then that brain muscle, the neurology starts to build the behaviors, right? How you think, feel, and act. And from there, the outcome changes. How you communicate your vision changes. The company culture changes. The ecosystem evolves with you, right? Makes sense? Makes sense? This is the most important thing of any business. Might not sound it, but it is. And once you start to look behind the scenes of thousands and thousands of businesses, like I have over 22 years, you realize that most businesses are kind of in chaos. There isn't really any stability. There is from the outside looking in, but not inside. It's a moving machine. It moves, it evolves, it changes, it adapts, right? And so having your identity and who you are designed, installed, built, right? Then that means we can drive the machine at hyper speed. Make sense? Beautiful. So, my question, who are you really if you were unlimited today? Who are you really? It's such a powerful question for you to really ponder for a moment. Do you know what I mean? Would the eight-figure thinker version of you be doing some of the things that you're doing right now? It even could go down to food, right? Nutrition, your body. Would the ultimate eight-figure thinker version of you really, right? Would they really be eating those things? Would they be having those sleeping patterns, right? Would you know where your performance side of you is? Do you know what time of the day, right? When you monitor your HRV? Probably not. All of these things are truly, truly important because it answers that question. To build the business that you want, there isn't actually that many steps. If we took the emotion out and put it to one side, there's probably not that many steps, right? This type of team, this type of network, this type of system, and rinse and repeat. That's what scales a business. As long as you create a high value for your client base, then the business will be in a flywheel. The business will perpetually grow, right? So it all starts with, who are you really if you were unlimited today? What decisions would you do differently? Make sense? I hope so. Write in the chat if it makes sense, because I really hope it does, because it's the key. It's the key thing, right? So, NLP technique. Now, NLP is a very in-depth, complicated system. It can be used for therapy. It can be used for trauma. It can be used in sales. It can be used in marketing. It can be used in persuasion. It can be used in influence. It can be used in coaching. But what I wanted to just give with you is three things there, right? And I'll explain them because I want you to understand that you're probably reading those things and go, yeah, I've heard all that before. Sure, probably. But neuroconditioning is related to every aspect of who you are and your business. But let me just read these, and I'll tell you why I put three very, very simple things in place. So mindfulness, box breathing, and anchoring and visualization. Okay, well, you've all heard of mindfulness, you've all heard of probably box breathing or different breathing rates, and you've all heard of visualization, and I'm probably anchoring these days. So, mindfulness. Why have I put mindfulness in there? Well, mindfulness isn't that just being just being aware of stuff. Yeah, it is, but it could go down to presence. But mindfulness, and what I'm talking about, is it becomes awareness of, or pattern recognition, right? It becomes awareness over internal, external. It could be internal behaviors or how you're responding or reacting. It could be how other people are responding or acting, or a business system. But that's the first step to neuroplasticity. It's the first step to change, is that awareness. If you're not aware of the pattern, then the brain cannot get flooded with brain chemicals that are catering for change, right? So that's step one. It's literally about neuroplasticity. Number two, box breathing. Well, what's that do? Calm you down, Andy? Yeah, but it's really about conditioning your nervous system to be in parasympathetic or sympathetic, depending on the context, right? It depends on the environment that you're stepping into. Do you want to be more calm, or is the anxiety kicking in? What is happening inside? So this is about a tiny little technique, but it's reconditioning your nervous system to respond how you want it to, no matter what the pressure. Right? Do you see? Do you see the difference? Anchoring and visualization. Well, visualization, everyone goes, oh, visualize. Yeah, there's some techniques behind that. I've heard some military do that. There's some studies. Let's go a little deeper for you. Visualization is actually the language of your unconscious mind or your brain, right? It's the language of your brain or your unconscious mind, which is your body mind, right? It's the bit of your mind that blinks you, breathes you, affects your behaviors. And if you aren't a master visualizer and understand that there are 64 components that make up even one memory, and every part of that structure is unique, right? And then you're not doing it at a high level. And so that's just one tiny little example, and we'll talk about anchoring another time. Does this make sense why this is a key component? Has this been helpful today? Please write in the chat so I know. Please write in the chat. And if you, yeah, we could talk about that very, very quickly. Of course, I've gone over time as normal, but hopefully you've enjoyed this. Spoke about this in session one. Please go back and watch that, because you probably like it and it's shorter. Yeah, we want to do 60 to 90 minutes cycles to match the brain's ultradian rhythm. And then it's 15 to 30 minutes of rest. And again, it's all in the book, the time playbook, and it is all in session one. So someone who used some of these tools is a SaaS founder called James. Completely changed everything. And he was facing micromanaging his team, and he was totally burnt out. And he was the issue. He was the bottleneck, right? He was the bottleneck. He was spending 80% of his time on low value tasks and leaving no room to actually think like a CEO, right? So he's struggling to scale without working longer hours, and he was a mess. He was a mess. Three little things he did. One, he applied the time mastery playbook, delegated 40% of his operational tasks, saving 15 hours a month. What did he do with those 15 hours? We put him into a genius state, that genius state with brainwaves and neurology. He got to see a totally different perspective. Then he adopted the 4D framework, And yeah, he went out and joint ventured and got 500K. Yeah, in partnership, which was epic for his business. So now then he had 15 hours a month to be able to think differently in an 8-figure thinker level, brought in funding, changed the reoccurring revenue model to a subscription model, which is always a winner. And then, yeah, organized, created SOPs, etc., etc. But my question to you is, maybe you want to write it in the chat. Maybe you want to message and speak about it in a Q&A. We'll do a short Q&A today. Or maybe you want to go to the WhatsApp group and ask me separately, okay? So what high leverage activity would you focus on with an extra 20 hours per month? What would you do? What would you do with 20 hours per month? 5 hours a week extra. Might not sound a lot, but if you're using those 5 hours and you're in burnout or stress mode, then it's a lot, right? It's a lot. So again, let me know. So your week's mission. Here's some things. So use the 4D framework. Do, delegate, defer, delete. Are you going to do it? Or are you going to delegate it? You're going to defer it because it's the wrong timing, or you're going to actually delete and get rid of it. Basic, nice and simple. One process, document and automate one repetitive task this week, right? One repetitive thing, can you automate it? Find out, right? Spend 5 minutes visualizing success daily. Sounds cheesy. I can show you at such a high level, but even if you just do that, at least we're communicating with our brain and unconscious mind, which then affects our da-da-da-da. You got it. And why don't you come for next week? Come for next week, because this is about feast or famine cycles next week. This is how to learn to build predictable revenue streams. This is to attract high value clients, and this is to eliminate income stability. So reserve your spot for next week. I hope you absolutely love that. And if you want more, and this is you, then you're stuck in a loop, unable to break, high leverage roles, tap into blue ocean's income recognition and influence, and you're a CEO, founder, consultant, or executive, or just running your own ship. Let's have a chat. In the email, there is the WhatsApp group. In the chat, in a few minutes, there'll be the link to the WhatsApp group. Want to find out more about me? AndyMurphy.online or 8figurethinker.com, or come over and hang out and listen to the podcast, right? You've got, don't know, nearly 4 million downloads and over 400 episodes, and I would love to hear your feedback. Sound good? Beautiful, beautiful. Let's jump in, everyone, to the Q&A.